All right, ready to go when you are, sir.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Juan Espinosa, Cybersecurity VP for Critical Infrastructure Practice here at Parsons. I'm very happy to kick off our Parsons 2025 series of cybersecurity webinars. We have a great lineup of cybersecurity subject matter experts that will share their knowledge throughout the year with relevant topics from cybersecurity regulation to the latest threat intelligence to practical tips to protect OT infrastructure. Throughout these webinars, we are committed to deliver meaningful content to our cybersecurity community of customers, colleagues, and friends that share our vision of making our critical infrastructure more reliable and secure. We want to make sure that the basic services that we all rely on, such as potable water, electricity, transportation, continue to be available and reliable in support to our society. In today's webinar, our very own John Daly, cybersecurity subject matter expert under our Parsons X group, will talk about the TSA proposed cybersecurity rulemaking and what it means for rail and transit operations. However, this proposed rulemaking is also relevant for other sectors such as pipelines, airports, and others, because this is a clear indication of the direction that TSA is taking to formalize cybersecurity regulation for the different critical infrastructure sectors. I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and if there's any other topics that you want us to discuss and research and present to you, please feel free to reach out to us and we will prepare them for you and add them to the agenda. Without further ado, John, take it off.
Excellent. Thank you, Ron. Thanks for that introduction. And hi, everyone. My name is John Daly, and I work in cybersecurity here at Parsons X, like Juan had mentioned. Thank you all for attending today's session, going over TSA's proposed rulemaking on cybersecurity. Here at Parsons, we believe cybersecurity isn't a competitive advantage, it's a shared responsibility. When one link is vulnerable, it can impact everyone across the network, and that's why we're hosting this session today. The TSA's proposed rulemaking is a significant step towards strengthening our collective cybersecurity posture as a country, but we know it can feel complex. So our goal here is simple today. We want to help you understand the TSA's proposed rulemaking, what's changing, who it's going to impact really, and what this means for you. And then also to give clear, actionable steps to strengthen your defenses, because preparedness is everything. Whether Parsons is someone you're already working with in cybersecurity or not, this information is too important not to share. Because at the end of the day, a more secure transportation industry benefits everyone. So we're going to dive right into it. Let's get started. This NPRM is not final. Let me say that right up front. And your input matters and still matters. TSA is actively seeking feedback from operators, stakeholders, and industry experts like you to refine and improve the proposed requirements that are in that document. As you may have heard by now, the current leadership at TSA is vacant, and Parsons is closely monitoring developments and potential impacts this may have, but we need to plan on these rules going into effect. All the more reason your input right now matters more than ever. There has not been any formal changes announced to the rulemaking, so get your comments in by February 5th so you can help guide TSA forward in cybersecurity. We want you to shape the rule. TSA relies on feedback to understand the real-world impact of these requirements. Please let them know also about any operational changes, costs, and feasibility related to all of this. Is it doable? They want to know, is it doable? So let them know. We want to be there to get you ready to advocate for your industry to ensure the rule reflects the realities and needs of rail transit and pipeline operators around the country right now. So you can still get your comments in. You've got just a few more days left on that, so do so. Now let's get into exactly what this is going to mean. The NPRM document, it's a beast. It is a beast of a document, 106 pages full of actionable goals TSA wants organizations like yours taking action on. These all build upon what TSA and DHS have said in previous security directives since 2021. But this time, it's making things more formal and with hard deadlines on this too. So that's what we're going to break down today. At the core of these 106 pages, it can really be summed up into 3 core requirements. The first one, developing a cyber risk management program. Think of this as your organization's cybersecurity playbook, which is going to include the annual enterprise-wide cybersecurity evaluation, where you're assessing where you are right now and where do you need to be on your cyber health. Number two, a cybersecurity operational implementation plan. With that plan, it's going to identify the critical systems, the governance roles like who's your cybersecurity coordinator, and then also your measures for protection, detection, and response as well. And also, they need a cybersecurity assessment plan, annual audits, and independent assessments to keep your CRM program effective and accountable. Number two, they also go into the depth talking about the mandatory reporting of cybersecurity incidents coming down the pipeline. Operators will be needed to report significant cyber incidents to the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. This is all about faster response and collective defense. And number three, the rulemaking covers physical security coordinator and incident reporting, where they really expand the roles of what that means. For some, TSA is extending the existing physical security requirements to include cybersecurity incidents, ensuring operators can respond to both types of threats. So really, it's fleshing out the roles quite a bit more. And you may be thinking, well, none of this is really new. Isn't this exactly what we've been doing all along with some of the mandates from 2021? Not really. Now with this NPRM, TSA is formalizing and expanding the existing guidance to regulate the space far more. And you all really have short deadlines to make this happen. So let's talk about that. When I'm talking about short deadlines, some of these deadlines kick in within 7 days of the rule being finalized. That's barely enough time to book a team meeting sometimes, let alone overhaul your cybersecurity policies. Others are going to require months of work, yet the clock will already be ticking. So let's go through them now so you're not caught scrambling at the last minute. Then we're going to go into detail about them all. So quickly starting from the top, cybersecurity evaluations, you've got to have your first evaluation done within 90 days of the final rule's effective date. That's super quick. You've kind of got to get started on that. New or modified operations to that, you've got to complete an evaluation at least 45 days before you're launching anything new. And then they're requesting annual updates to make sure you're within compliance. And of course, anytime you complete any sort of evaluation, you got to tell the TSA within 7 days of completing that. Moving down the list, you've got 180 days after the final rule's effective date to submit your cybersecurity operational implementation plan. Now, a lot of people probably already have that done, which is great, but you still have to send it to the TSA to say, here's what we do in our organization. If you're making any changes, you've got to submit it at least 45 days before you put it into practice. And then, of course, you've got to be reviewing and updating any of these within 60 days after any sort of cybersecurity evaluation takes place. They're also requesting within 7 days, you've told them who your cybersecurity coordinator is going to be on key personnel. And within 30 days, you've appointed in the eyes of the TSA who your accountable executive is going to be. When things go wrong, or if things go wrong, who's the person the TSA needs to talk to, or who would be calling the TSA. They need to know that. Over on the right-hand side, again, we're going to go into details on all of these. Cybersecurity training, you should be doing this already, but they have it formalized where you've got to complete the initial training within 60 days anytime you've got a new cybersecurity plan, or within 10 days of onboarding anybody new, and you're doing training annually. Again, most people are already doing this from some of the standards there. But as far as the reporting, you've got to report any significant cybersecurity incident to CISA within 24 hours of identification. They will be putting those rules out that says exactly how you go about doing that. So while everything is, while you're already trying to figure out and how to problem solve right there, you've also got to contact CISA. And I'll go into why in a moment too. And finally, your cybersecurity assessment plan. You've got to have your first plan submitted to TSA within 90 days for it to, after your cybersecurity operational plan is submitted, and then do 15 months after approval of that from there. And of course, they recommend you're doing annual updates no later than 12 months after the last time TSA had approved your plan. So there's a lot to do. And the clock is ticking. So let's talk about who is this actually going to be impacting. Well, the TSA is honing in on the high-risk operators in this industry for the most part. This is significantly going to impact higher-risk operators if you're part of one of the 73 of the 620 U.S. freight railroads, 34 of the 92 public transit agencies or passenger railroads, or one of the 115 pipeline facilities and systems around the country, as well as some of the over-the-road bus operators that fall under TSA regulations. This proposed rule is exactly for you. Over the next 10 years, it's going to require significant investment from everybody. It's estimated right now by the TSA that if you're working in the freight railroad industry, you're looking at probably an increase of $940K per year per operator. For passenger transit agencies, we're looking at $2.6 million annually, and for pipelines, $504,000 annually per facility. Let's be real, it's not easy to find a spare $1 million lying around for something like this. But ignoring these changes could cost you far more than the fines that the TSA is going to be implementing also. Imagine a ransomware attack shutting down your network, dispatch systems failing, ticketing going offline, everybody screaming on your customer side. The TSA's new rule isn't just about checking a compliance box, it's about preventing the operational chaos that can happen from a cyber attack as well. So let's talk about why this rule matters for your organizations a little bit more than that. TSA's proposed rule aims to tackle the rising cyber threats head on right now. Ransomware attacks are up. They have increased dramatically, targeting critical IT and OT systems around the country. Nation state actors continue to probe for vulnerabilities in U.S. infrastructure every single day. And legacy systems are still out there. There's a lot of older stuff that is super vulnerable to attack that nobody's gotten around to updating because it's quote unquote just worked. And the blending of IT and OT environments right now is creating a lot of new risks that attackers are really eager to exploit. And maybe that's already happened to your organization. You've already caught on to some of that. The TSA's approach here is performance-based and aligns with best practices from frameworks like NIST Cybersecurity Framework and CISA's cross-sector cybersecurity performance goals. It's not about compliance for compliance sake. Again, I'm going to be saying that a lot. It's not just, oh, just so we have a checkbox. No, it's all about building long-term resilience here. Understanding these requirements now can help you prepare for what's coming and take the proactive steps to strengthen your system. So the first thing on the docket that they've got out there, developing a cyber risk management program, which is your organization's cybersecurity playbook. It's going to need those 3 feet. Let's talk about those 3 features that you need and how you're going to grade yourself on how to be better. The annual enterprise-wide cybersecurity evaluation is something you should be doing all the time. That's where you're doing a checklist. What is your whole system like? Everything that's out there, everything that's connected to your network, and where do you plan on adding additional components to your network as well. This will align with the NIST cybersecurity frameworks and CISA's performance goals. The other thing that they're requiring is, I mentioned it briefly before, that cybersecurity operational implementation plan, which is really going to lay out all the governance roles. Who's who in the zoo at your organization? Who are the cybersecurity coordinators in charge of training, in charge of incident response? Who's the phone calling tree if there is an incident? And who are the people that are going to be interfacing with CISO as you're problem solving? You're also going to use this time to identify every part of your critical cyber systems. Identification, marking the architecture out, and then what protective measures do you have in place? Do you have a incident response? Do you have a intrusion detection system? Do you have a monitoring and vulnerability scanning setup all there? And TSA is wanting that dictated. They want to know, what is your detection and response plans? How are you going to monitor? How do you currently monitor your network and respond to any threats that come up? And how are you going to recover from anything that happens too? They want you focusing on actionable and customized measures tailored to your specific system. It's not just going to be the same for every organization. And then, of course, I had mentioned as well the cybersecurity assessment plan, where they want people doing regular independent audits and assessments of the network. You could write you're going to write your whole cybersecurity plan and saying, we're awesome, look at all the ways we're protecting our network. Well, until you've got a third party coming through to check things out, to check your homework, we don't know if that's enough. And TSA wants another set of eyes looking at the work you're doing. With that annual reporting to them is going to identify any gaps you've got in your system, any vulnerabilities, and try to figure out the ways to improve your network. Key takeaways here, your CRM programs are not just about compliance, it's about building a culture of resilience, proactively addressing risks before they impact the operators. There's a lot there, and I had covered a little bit again. Let's talk about those deadlines. This is going to come quick, like we've talked about. Cybersecurity evaluation, the first eval is going to be done within 90 days of this final rules effective date. So you got to get on that. New modified operations at least 45 days before any launch. So if you're changing anything within your network, you got to let them know 45 days before it takes effect. And then you've got to notify TSA within 7 days anytime you've made these updates or you've done a pen testing or any other sort of evaluation testing of your network. Let them know within 7 days of that and what the findings were. Your operational plan, you got to submit 180 days after the final rule effective date. What is your whole plan? And then you've got to be reviewing it within 60 days after any sort of evaluation event happens. So you're doing pen testing, you're doing network checks, you're adding new equipment to your network. You've got to update the whole plan within 60 days of that happening. And then, of course, they're looking for submission to TSA as well on your cybersecurity assessment plan. If you miss any of these deadlines, there's going to be some non-compliance penalties. They have not actively said what those are going to be yet, but expect them to be high. So you should be prepared for that. And just start getting all your ducks in a row right now. So how do you put a CRM plan into practice for your organization? Like we're going over a checklist, like here's the things you need. And you might be like, okay, cool. Where should I start? Well, that's what we're going to talk about here. First thing you're going to want to do is start with an enterprise cyber risk assessment. You're going to want to identify all the critical systems, IT and OT, that are happening in your network and use the NIST frameworks and the TSA guidelines as your benchmarks as you're starting to put together where your vulnerabilities are. What is your risk assessment? And then build out your cybersecurity operational implementation plan from there. This is when you're going to say who in your org is going to be the cybersecurity coordinator and the executive accountability person as well. They're going to be responsible for mapping out everything from your system architecture, what your detection methods are, and then your incident response plans and recovery plans. And start talking about them. What are we going to do if there is an incident? Start doing some wargaming and come up with some scenarios and say, okay, if this happened, let's work through the tree. Kind of like a fire drill, but cybersecurity is what we recommend you starting to do. Put together a cybersecurity assessment plan. So schedule your regular independent assessments. You got to get somebody outside your org to look at your network. And they've got to come through and try to tear it apart and come up and hopefully come to the same conclusions that you've already come to. But they're more than likely going to find other vulnerabilities you might not have found. This includes conducting penetration testing and red and purple team exercises annually. I want to note, be mindful of any penetration testing you're doing in OT environments. We understand that is a very sensitive. Just be mindful of that as you're going into it. And of course, the entire time, document and report. Keep the records of any of these assessments and report findings to the TSA as required. This is not going to be something that you're going to set it and forget it and do once and never touch again. Think of your CRM program as a living document, continuously updating it as new threats, systems, and technologies emerge. Moving on to number 2, mandatory reporting of incidents to CISA has been talked about for a while now. This continues to be a top priority, and it's another thing that they cover a lot in the 106-page NPRM. With it, collectively, organizations can have a faster incident response than operating alone. That's the whole point of this. If we share our knowledge with each other and start identifying repeatable attack patterns or weak points, sharing these stories across the industry allows us to strengthen our defenses as a country and stop the bad actors from using the same playbooks over and over again. Key examples of reportable incidents we're talking about, you're going to be reporting anytime somebody's holding you up for ransomware attacks, disrupting your IT or OT operations. This is talking about unauthorized access to critical systems, and then also suspicious activity tied to nation state actors. Could also be actors that are not just foreign. They could be coming from within our own country. You'll be spying that based on their IP networks, IP addresses and things like that, but that's not always going to be the key there. Suspicious activity, who's on your network? That's what you're going to be reporting. Hey, we had this, we locked things down, but it's still something we needed to tell CISA about. Mandatory reporting is required to CISA within 24 hours of identification. So once something happens, you got to let them know. Let's talk about what you can do to be ready for incidents quickly and for what the TSA is really expecting from you. You got to have an incident response plan in place. With that, it's going to define what your reporting protocols are going to be, internal and external. Okay, inside your organization, if somebody finds a red flag or there's ransomware attack or there's suspicious activity, who calls who? And there's likely going to be a tree that's going to go all the way up where you're escalating so everybody knows what their roles and responsibilities are going to be as well during this event to make sure you lock things down. You're able to suss out the problem, or if it's a bigger issue, you are going to be working on that plan to remediate there. And of course, you're going to identify who is responsible for reporting this to CISA. We recommend you test your IRP annually to ensure readiness, doing those war gamings at least annually, where you test it out and be like, all right, let's assume we get locked out of our machines. What are we going to do? Let's assume somebody took control of this particular network device. What do we do? And with all of that, you're training your team on what to do in the incident, but also just educate the personnel on how to recognize cyber incidents before they happen. Running training on phishing, unauthorized access, ransomware, smishing, all of the things that are coming up that are likely threats. And the most common things that lead to cyber incidents happening, educate your team. Run tabletop exercises, like I mentioned, practice incident escalation and response as well. But primarily, if you're constantly feeding people on your team different news articles about cyber incidents within our organization, within organizations like our own, or you're telling them about, hey, here's the latest trends we're seeing in ways the cybersecurity community have noticed bad actors trying to trick people into getting access. Let them know. Educate regularly. Share stories as you get across the industry, and that's just going to help us all be stronger. And beyond just educating your team, set up continuous monitoring tools. You got to have some sort of thing like that, is what TSA is saying. You need a monitoring tool set up. A security information and event management software on your network is key to detect the anomalies and trigger reporting as well if there's anything suspicious going on that somebody doesn't check themselves. And of course, document everything. Maintain detailed logs of incidents, actions taken, and reporting timelines. We recommend you automate incident detection and escalation when it's possible. It speeds matters up when responding to cyber threats. If you've got a really good continuous monitoring tool that is scanning your network and sending you alerts when something looks suspicious, you're faster to identify it and you're faster to isolate the issue to prevent a major serious problem within your network. There we go. Had trouble advancing the slide. Sorry about that. Finally, we're talking about the number 3 on the list here, physical security coordination and incident reporting. TSA extends physical security requirements to align with cyber incident management and keep it all together this time around. They want to extend the requirements for anybody who was working physical security to include cyber. And it's good for everybody to be sharing that together, sharing that responsibility together between physical and cyber security roles. What are they specifically looking for? They want you to designate a physical security coordinator responsible for managing both the physical and cybersecurity risks. Reporting, and then of course reporting significant security concerns, both physical and cyber, to TSA and CSA and CISA when needed to. Why this matters? Well, cyber incidents can have physical consequences. For example, if somebody's doing ransomware on your takes control of your network and you're held hostage for ransom, it's going to shut down control systems, impacting safety components that you've got and critical infrastructure related to that. IT breaches most likely are going to be compromising operational technology, and those are the ones that are going to affect the real world operations. That could be messing with train brakes, that could be messing with planes taking off, that can be messing up with a whole bunch of different things. Cyber and physical risks are intertwined now more than ever, and they're deeply interconnected. Designating a coordinator ensures that you're prepared to manage those threats holistically as they come up, because it's the same person who's able to respond. So how do you put this in place? Well, I kind of already covered a little bit of this, but let's go over it again. You're going to want to appoint a dedicated cybersecurity coordinator, an accountable executive, and that person's going to oversee both the physical security and cybersecurity incident response. And then, of course, you've got to notify the TSA who these people are within 7 days of the ruling date. So quick, start thinking of who your team. You might have already identified who that cybersecurity coordinator is going to be. Then you're good. Then, of course, you've got to create that unified plan that bridges between the physical and the cyber security plans for security. What do you do with physical breaches versus what do you do in cyber-related disruptions? Put that all together in the same document. Number 3, conduct the regular drills and run annual assessments. It's always good doing test scenarios where physical and cyber incidents intersect, such as ransomware attacks, disabling a physical security system. So that's good to be thinking about. And then, of course, leverage tools for situational awareness, using centralized dashboards to monitor both your physical access and network activity in real time. It's going to save you a lot of headaches. Do not be siloing physical and cyber teams. Collaboration between these two security groups are going to ensure things get done, get escalated, and get solved faster, more effectively. Okay, so let's recap what's proposed by the TSA in this NPRM. Number 1, you need a cybersecurity risk management program with lots of different steps in there. It's going to be your comprehensive cybersecurity roadmap tailored to your organization's critical systems. So treat that as your living strategy to protect, defend, and respond effectively. Number 2, you're going to be doing mandatory incident reporting to CISA, ensuring faster response is going to strengthen the collective defenses of all organizations through real-time escalation. And then, of course, your physical security coordination needs to be elevated. Aligning physical and cybersecurity incident management under a unified response strategy is what they're looking for you to do. It breaks down silos to protect against interconnected risks as well. So that's a lot. Do you feel ready for this? If you don't feel ready, we at Parsons have been helping the critical infrastructure space and cybersecurity for a long time. We know that compliance can feel overwhelming, but the good news is you don't have to do this alone. Our team has decades of experience helping critical infrastructure operators navigate cybersecurity regulations, strengthen their defenses, and develop strategic long-term security plans. So let's talk about the immediate stuff you got to be doing and should be talking about within your organization right now. Number 1, start your enterprise-wide risk assessment. If you haven't already, now is the time to take a hard look at your organization's cybersecurity posture. That means mapping out your critical systems, identifying your vulnerabilities, and prioritizing your risks. The TSA rule is based on the NIST cybersecurity framework, so aligning your risk assessment with NIST best practices is a great and easy way to start. Number 2, build or update your incident response plan. If you don't have one already, build one. If you've already got one, check it out again. Cyber incidents aren't really a matter of if, they're a matter of when. As somebody in the cybersecurity world on critical infrastructure, everybody gets targeted and there's always something fishy going on. It's just a matter of shrinking your attack surface to be as low as possible. Your response plan should be clear on reporting roles, escalating timelines, and exactly how your team will react under pressure. So regularly test this plan through tabletop exercises is also key to make sure it actually works in real-time scenarios. You want to make sure that people know what they're doing. Number 3, integrate the physical and cybersecurity teams as well. Cyber and physical security are no longer separate concerns to the TSA, and they're making that extra clear in this new ruling. Your cybersecurity team should be working closely with these operators, and this means coordinated drills, shared playbooks, and a unified approach to the risks. Number 4, commit to regular testing. One of the biggest pitfalls in cybersecurity we see all the time is people thinking they can just set it and forget it when it comes to doing a plan and be like, cool, we're good. No, security is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time compliance checkbox that you fill out. That means you're doing annual assessments, independent audits, and regular penetration testing to make sure your system holds up against the real-world threats. And number 5, you need to adopt continuous monitoring tools if you don't have one yet. If you can't see what's happening on your network, you can't protect it. That's really what it comes down to. Continuous monitoring, especially in IT and OT environments, is critical for real-time detection of threats. Implementing robust detection tools will help you stay ahead of the emerging attacks. Compliance starts with action, as it says right there on the bottom of the slide. Resilience starts with preparation. Parsons is here to support you every step of the way if you'd like. And while we just covered all that, let me put these up one more time. The time to act is now. If you take just one thing away from today's session, let it be this, that you've got to start preparing now. The deadlines are coming fast, but getting ahead of them will put your organization in a much stronger position, not just for compliance reasons, but for long-term security in general. We'd love to continue this conversation between your house and our group here at Parsons. Whether you have questions about today's discussion or need expert guidance on implementing any of this, let's connect. Reach out to us. I'm here, Juan is here, and we'd love to make sure your organization is ready for what's ahead, including what's coming from the TSA regulations. So with that, I will say thank you all for coming to today's webinar. We are happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. If not, here's our contact information, and hope you reach out to Juan to continue the conversation. And if you've got any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat window or take yourself off mute and ask away. Thanks everyone for coming.
Hey John, we have a question in the chat from Ian. The question is there a list of specific operators? So I would assume that he's asking about like which rail and transit entities are subject to this regulation.
Which ones are they flagging as the high risk ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think his question is if there is actually any list with specific names. To the best of my knowledge, there is not, and I copy a extract from the actual rulemaking, and they seem to cover a lot of ground in what they expect. Almost anyone that has freight railroad carriers, transit operators, public transportation agencies. So apparently the definition is very broad, right? So almost anyone will be subject to the cybersecurity requirements if they operate in a rail and transit ecosystem. But I don't believe seeing any specific names, of operators in the actual rulemaking. Do you remember any specific names, or it was just generic definitions?
What we were doing when I had the slide up talking about the number where I was like, oh, if you fall into one of these categories, where was it at the top? Talking about this when we were like 73 of the 620 U.S. freight railroads. What we were doing is we were taking this information that Juan had shared in the chat here and breaking that down and be like, all right, let's look at all of the freight railroads in the country, which ones meet this as far as how long of a distance they have, how big their networks need to be. They've got a couple of check boxes in the 106 page document there that's how we came to these specific numbers here on the screen right now. But asking specifically, like, give us a list of all the names that they want, or having harder definitions of who needs to be complying to this would be a great question for you to be asking, Ian. So I would recommend submitting that to TSA during the questions. You got it? Any other questions at this time? Has there been another question we just got? Has there been insight as to how the TSA may enforce the guidelines? So they mentioned in the NPRM that there's going to be financial fines that are going to come to organizations that miss their deadlines. They do not explicitly say how much that's going to be right now, but this is definitely a change compared to some of the stuff from Homeland Security that's like, we'd like you to do this. This is what you need to do. They're saying if you don't do this, you're going to get penalized and you've got to pay us money. So it has not been decided exactly how much that is going to be yet, but great question. Cool. Well, I think with that, we can wrap things up right now. We recorded this session. I'm going to be sending it to everybody who had requested to come to the webinar. So you've got a link to this if you wanted to refer to this in the future. And I'll turn it over to Juan for any last minute remarks. Juan.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate it. A lot of content here, and we wanted to make sure that the information that we presented was a summary. Of course, it's a lengthy document, but if there's any further questions or you want to expand the conversation, just reach out. Like I mentioned at the beginning, the intent is to have a series of webinars. We're trying to help our community kind of filter through the amount of information that is coming our way. I'm sure it's coming your way too. So it's hard to keep up. So we're trying to present things in a succinct way, no more than 30 minutes with the actual relevant content that we see coming our way with our customers and with the research that we do in person. So feel free to reach out to expand the conversation. But John, great job. I really appreciate your conversation, and stay tuned for the following announcement next month for our next webinar. I have a very, like I said, very good lineup of topics and subject matter experts. So hopefully you will enjoy that, and feel free to make us comments or any suggestions on how to move this forward also with topics. Thank you, John.
Great. Thank you, everybody.